Hello, today we are going to discuss about the data warehouse process managers. In data warehouse, the data is collected to the different data operational databases, and this data is just not completely collected over the data warehouse, but the part of it is copied from the operational database to the data warehouse. Likewise, the data which resides for a very long time on the data warehouse and has not been accessed are sent back to the operational database, remote site located operational databases. In this way, the data flows from the operational database to the data warehouse, and similarly from data warehouse to the operational database. For transferring the data along the two sides, uh, we need a process managers. Depending upon the requirement, there are three types of process manager. First, the load manager, second, the warehouse manager, and third, the query manager. The first one among these three, the load manager, is responsible for the accessing that data that is not frequently accessed and is available on the remote location on some operational data warehouse, and that is accessed with the help of load manager. Load manager basically uh, Load manager basically perform the operation required to extract and load the data into the database. The size and the complexity of the load manager varies between a specific solution from one data warehouse to the other. The load manager performs the following functions: extract data from the source system, first load the extracted data into a temporary data store, and perform simple transformation into structure similar to the one in the data warehouse. The data that has been stored or collected from the some operational database is does not directly stored into data warehouse, but before that we need to pre-process that data, and this pre-processing is done in a temporary data store. As shown in this diagram, the first, suppose the different file formats which are stored in temporary data store are transformed into the dataware structures format so that it can be stored properly. The database transformation, like eliminating the missing value, removing the noise, and arranging the data as per the schemas of the data warehouse structures. As this is used for the collecting the data which is available on a remote side, we need here a gateway that is basically either open ODBC or JDBC, Open Database Connectivity or Java Database Connectivity, through which the SQL query is sent to the remote location, from where the data related to that query is sent back to the temporary storage. In this way, the process manager is to collect the data from the remote side and bring it to the data warehouse. But uh, this is very inefficient technique, as with increasing number of users, it takes a lot of time and it is not time efficient. So to make the time efficient, we must store the most of the data that we frequently accessed or could be accessed on the data warehouse. So the data that is actually stored on the data warehouse is managed by the data warehouse manager. And for fast loading, there are certain properties like to trans like the data warehouse manager. In its data warehouse manager is a responsible for warehouse management process. It consists of a third-party system software, C program, and shell script. The size and the complexity of the warehouse manager varies between specific solution. Warehouse manager architecture is shown in this diagram. A warehouse manager includes the following: the controlling process, the stored procedure or C with SQL, backup recovery tool, and SQL script. Here we can see that the data that is stored in temporary data stored is organized in the as per the format of data warehouse, and for example in some snowflake schema, and that is summarized in some tables. A data warehouse manager performs the following function. It analyzes the data to perform consistency and referential integrity check, to create index, business views, partition views against the base data, generate new aggregation and update the existing aggregation, generate normalization. Next, the transform and merge the source data of the temporary store into the published data warehouse. Backup the data in data warehouse and archive the data that has reached the end of its captured life. Basically, all the uh, data activity performed like normalization, aggregation, generalization, and transformations are done by this, and the backup of the data is also maintained by this. It creates the indexes, and the data that is not accept that has not been accessed for a long time are sent to the um, are deleted, or they are backed up in some remote location on the some operational data. A warehouse manager analyzes query profile to determine whether the index and aggregation are appropriate or not. This is also the role of the warehouse manager. Then comes the third, the query manager. The query manager is responsible for directing the queries to suitable tables. By directing the queries to appropriate table, it speeds up the query request and response process. In addition, the query manager is responsible for scheduling the execution of the queries posted by the user. So basically, query manager particularly send the queries to the appropriate location where the targeted table is stored. It defined that this query could be processed at this table. In this way, it find out the actual location of the data where the queries data is available. Queries, the data has been queried is available. It it speed up the performance, and it also schedules the incoming queries, that which query should be preferred first or second, third, like this. A query manager include the following components. A query redirective tools. As I've told you, the query incoming query is, as data warehouse have a very huge size, so which query should be sent to the which part of the data warehouse is decided by this. So it has the query redirection tools via C for RDMS. It has some stored procedures and query management tools. The number of queries are are received by the data warehouse per second. So the scheduling of the queries is also done with the help of the query manager. Query scheduling via third-party softwares. So this is the diagram. Here in diagram, we can see that the query manager consists of query redirection, query management tools, query scheduling, and stored procedures, which are some stored procedures which are used for doing all these jobs. Functions of query manager. It presents the data to the user in the form they understand. It schedules the execution of the queries posted by the end user. It stores query profile to allow the warehouse manager to determine which index and aggregation are appropriate. It decides that which aggregation are appropriate. It does not integrate different type of data just on the basis of some common attributes. If it is whether it is relevant or not, it is decided by the query manager, which do this with help of some already stored procedures. So these are the these are the three types of manager. These are the three types of manager which are used in data warehouse. There are three. These are three: the load manager, warehouse manager, and query manager. I summarize is that load manager for accessing the remote size located data with the help of the JDBC ODBC server, and but this technique is not much efficient if number of users is increase and number of users increases a certain threshold level. So we cannot make data warehouse like a central system which does not store any amount of data and or access all the data through client server architecture. So we need to store that frequently accessed data on the data warehouse, and this type of data which resides on the data warehouse is handled with the help of data warehouse load manager. Data warehouse load manager performs all the operations related to the data warehouse like aggregation, generalization, normalizations, and it stored the temporary data stores data into the data warehouse defined format. Defined format. And the third one, the query processing tool, is are used to redirect the queries and to uh, and it is used for scheduling the queries. So that's all about the data warehouse process managers.